In this episode of Detroit Performs, a henna artist. An artist creates to spread inspiration within others. And the history of the letterpress. It's all ahead on this edition of Detroit Performs.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, the A. Paul and Carol C. Scott Foundation, the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs, the National Endowment for the Arts, the DeRoy Testamentary Foundation, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Detroit Performs. I'm your host, DJ Oliver, and today I'm at Joe's Gallery, the oldest art gallery on the Livernois Avenue of fashion. Owner Garnett Archer took over the space from her mother and namesake Joe. Now I'll be exploring this space throughout the show. But right now, let's get to our opening segment. Henna artist Lydia Hannah Wilson moved to the U.S. from India a couple of years ago. And with her, she brought our community the tradition of henna. And she said Metro Detroit gave her a creative space to explore every creative avenue she's ever thought of. Check it out.
I think any field, any art, it has to give hope, a sense of living to the person who is seeing it. Not depress them, but encourage them. I grew up in a place called Hubli. It's in Karnataka, South India. In India, it's not really common that people study fine arts, but for me, I always loved design, and any empty space, me designing was my thing. Nature taught me so much more than what textbooks taught me. The way how wind moves, the way how actually Psalmist describes nature really well in the Bible. And that really moved me. I mean, if he was able to make songs out of it, why was I not able to do something with paint? That really triggered my brain. Henna is an ancient art form. In Indian culture, all the brides apply that, like up till here. It's really crazy, but it takes about 7 to 8 hours just to work on their hands and their feet. The reason why they do it is they think it enhances the bride. It's just like an adornment to yourself. And it has a lot of health benefits too. It cools down your body temperature, and it's more like a spa treatment because of the oils and all the beautiful aromas you get in the henna. There's a chemical reaction that happens in the paste. After 5-10 minutes, the stain starts releasing. So it reacts with your skin, which is perfectly normal and organic. It's nothing to be alarmed of. So the longer I keep the henna paste on my skin, the longer the dye releases. So I started doing henna when I was 10 years old. My neighbor was a Muslim, and it was her wedding, and she got her hands all decked up with henna up till here, and that amazed me. And after 2 days, her stain was still there. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I mean, it just doesn't go off. I mean, I want to do that too. There are different applications also. People use a needle-based tube to do henna here. I prefer cone. Cone is nothing but a plastic roll that you roll and then you tape it with a pin. So the pin gives a proper diameter for the thickness and thinness. I like to work with a fusion of thin and thick lines. So it gives a lot of depth, I feel. There are a few traditional designs. For brides especially, we do a lot of portraits in henna, like the bride with a dupatta on her head. The rich heritage and the rich culture, which is in India, many people don't know in Detroit. So when I do those designs, they're like, oh, what is this? What kind of design is this? What kind of an art form is this? So when I explain them, they're aware of the culture. They're aware from where it came. Other forms are like the Arabic forms, more like contemporary forms. When I do brides, I use the embroidery which is on her dress. So I use those as my inspiration. And the love story of the bride. I mean, how the bride met the groom, where did they meet, what is the common thing between them. I sit with them for 8-9 hours and they explain me their entire story. And as they explain their story, I on the spot I build their story up in the henna. I think that lightens them and they feel good about it.
You can learn more about Lydia Hannah Wilson as well as all the artists that we feature on DetroitPerforms.org. Samah Kthar's Iraqi roots are mirrored in her abstract paintings. The intention of her artwork is to create a pronounced effect that is memorable enough to leave the viewer to decipher their own feelings. Check it out.
When creating, I'm always trying to be as honest, genuine, and transparent as possible, and then have a platform for people to take a look at the piece and then really reflect what's within them, and then have someone be able to connect with that piece just from providing the energy that I put from myself into the piece. It really tells a lot. My family is from Iraq, and my dad came to this country in the 80s. Our family comes from jewelers, and so when I was 12, I was working with my dad, and he around all this gold and all this jewelry, and he was always telling me to sell. And at 12, you're just like, okay, but so gold is something I'm very drawn to, and this piece has that. And the mood, the weather, the food, all of that impacts how a piece gets created. And specifically looking at this piece, my mood, I was content. I was at a very peaceful state of mind, and it and I'm drawn to blues. Another aspect of this piece is learning about dimensions. I'm working my way to understand perspectives of dimensions and allowing depth to come through the piece. And then also applying techniques along the way, so incorporating techniques that I've learned and then exploring new techniques within the piece as well. My background is actually in biology. I discovered painting it was quite spontaneous. There was a time where I was really going through some life transitions, and I just ended up having the opportunity to explore myself through painting, and it's been quite a healing process for me. In order to include truth in a painting, you have to be honest with yourself. It starts with yourself. How can you be able to connect with others if you haven't connected with yourself? You have to be able to be open, accepting of yourself, and to be able to really look at yourself inside and just be proud of that. Not prideful, but be proud that you deserve to be here. You have a gift, and that you can connect with as many people. I think ideally it's the intent, it's your intention, it's your energy. What kind of energy are you putting out there? Because people sense it. I create abstract, and there's so many people that tell me that they sense it, a certain thing about a piece, and they're spot on. And so I believe that there's more than 5 senses. But the thing is I see the artworks as memories, because as we go through, we're taking in more memories and more experiences. So it is almost like a picture, a snapshot that, because when I look back at old pieces, I remember that time. I remember where I was. I remember how I was feeling. And it is a memory in itself, but you have to keep going. You have to move on. We're here in the present. The present is the gift. And so in order for us to keep going, yes, you appreciate your experiences, but you still have to be present. You can't hold on to things. You create them, and then you let them go. And then whoever is meant to have them and whoever is meant to connect with them is meant to connect with them. And I truly feel like every piece is meant to go to a specific person or place, and that's just how I like to look at things. The thing about abstract is it's trying to pull something from nothing, like you are creating as you go. There's no rules, it's just, you just keep going. And when I look at abstract now, I realize it's more of the process, and it's more of the introspection, and that's the ability to do it is what allowed me to understand that it has nothing to do with the techniques and all of that. Yes, that's one thing, but abstract is more of the inner and the unknowing, that there's no rules, that it can go any which way, and that it works for you or whoever is viewing it.
Now let's check out some upcoming events happening in and around the D. Our final segment features Erin Beckloff, who loves the history and tradition of the letterpress so much that she did something to make sure the craft sticks around for a very long time. Here's her story.
Letterpress printing is a method of relief printing. While technology shifted, letterpress printing was the method of printing for over 500 years. And it's no longer economically the fastest way to print, but there's something that people are still connecting to, and I think that's why it's become an art and a craft. My in-laws gave me a small printing press as a wedding gift. So I got this little printing press and I didn't know how to use it, and so I started reaching out to people in the letterpress community for help, because you can search for it on the internet and there are some videos, but it's so much better to go and meet with someone. And I started to find that there were other people that cared about this, and there were other people that had printing presses in their basements or garages. And it wasn't just people in their 20s and 30s, it was also people in their 80s. So it was fantastic to find this community that wanted to help each other. There aren't really secrets. It's everyone wants to help letterpress printing survive, and so everyone's willing to help each other out, be it by finding equipment or teaching a technique or learning a new process or talking about how to mix ink. Everybody helps each other. Letterpress printing, as it became an art form or a craft, it still has that limited constraint of working with the wood and the metal and the wood and metal type and the ornaments. And your collection tends to influence your aesthetic as a shop. If you think of someone like Hat Showprint down in Nashville, Tennessee, they're using blocks that might have been used on a Johnny Cash poster, and now they're being used on a contemporary country music poster. And to think about that collection is then influencing your aesthetic. When I started to acquire type, I became very interested in wood type. I loved the beauty of the letters. I loved that so many of the wood type fonts were made over 100 years ago and we're still able to use them today. I like how big and bold they are, and that was just something I really connected with. My dad actually makes wood type the same way that it was produced for hundreds of years by all the wood type manufacturers. So Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum, most people have seen Hamilton on a little drawer pull, that's that group. They made type using this pantograph method, which is a dual tracer and router. And so you trace the pattern of the letter or the ornament, decorative ornament, and then it cuts the type out of end grain maple. And a lot of my style and aesthetic came from the fact that my dad, Scott, of Morewood Type, started making type the historic way. And so I started really exploring how these ornaments could be used to create form and solids and even letter forms and characters. And so I really like to use my dad's ornaments as a main component of my work. But I love the traditional tools of letterpress printing. The wood and the metal type. The metal type's really small and can get this very crisp line, and some of the fonts are only available in wood and metal. They never made it to the computer, which is just special. And I just love the history that you know is in every letter that you're setting. It's been used before, and so being able to give it life by continuing to print with it is just something that I connect to as a tool and as my main driving force of my aesthetic as a printer. Letterpress printing in a lot of ways is almost meditative. You become one with the press that you're using, and if it's your own press especially, you start to hear and know the quirks of the press, and they all have their own sound. You know, each press has its own rhythm and music to it, and especially when you're running one of the larger presses like my Chandler & Price CMP with the flywheel, you can feel that motion, and I stand against it, and you're a part of the rhythm of the printing, and so you're feeding it the paper, and it continues to run, and you hear the cha-chink of the cast iron, or you hear the little glitches of the gears, and it's a wholly immersive experience, and it really makes you slow down because you can't go faster than the press. After getting my very first press, I had a business for about a year trying to sell commercial work, and that just really wasn't for me. I tried to do the craft fairs and the art fairs, and I just really loved making, and I really love people. And so I came back to my alma mater where I received my undergrad in graphic design, and they had a letterpress shop that was sitting unused. And so I had the opportunity to teach a class, to teach students how to be letterpress printers, which quite honestly, I was still learning myself and continue to today. And I started teaching letterpress as an elective, and I had great groups of students for every semester. So 9 years, every semester we've offered letterpress printing, sometimes multiple sections. It's wonderful to watch my students pull their first print, because they pull that first print off the press and just kind of a light goes on. Watching them discover how fascinating letterpress printing can be is immensely satisfying and joyful for me. Pressing On the Letterpress film is a documentary about the survival of letterpress printing and specifically the community that have kept it alive. It is both the older generation that held on to the equipment and the knowledge through a time when letterpress printing was not popular, and also the new generation that are continuing to keep it going. So I would say I'm a member of the new generation, and as I became a part of the community and started to make these connections with these 70 and 80-year-old printers, I knew that that knowledge was going to get lost if we didn't record it in some way. Through making the film, I got to see the way letterpress had been a part of all of these people's lives since they were young. So some of the older printers in the community had become apprentices when they were 12 or 15 years old with their families. And so I got to hear the way that letterpress printing had driven their life path, and how special it is to them to know that there's a young generation that still cares about this process, this medium, this trade that they love. The printers that held this knowledge, a lot of it was never recorded in books. I've taken on this role as educator and filmmaker and created a shop at a university, and they seem to connect to it. And so many of them have gone on to actually buy their own presses, which I never imagined. You know, I love that it's a part of their lives, but now they have their own presses that they're learning how to use, learning their presses quirks. And I love to see that engagement, and that they want to continue to help be a part of the letterpress community. Using letterpress printing equipment is what's keeping it alive. Having a wood type font sit in a drawer or behind glass somewhere isn't going to keep it going. When you're continuing to print it, it not only is putting oil back into the wood and keeping those characters in good condition, but by printing it, you're then sharing it with more people, which is keeping letterpress printing alive. So it's both the use and the people that are continuing to keep letterpress going.
And that wraps it up for this edition of Detroit Performs. As always, for more arts and culture, head to DetroitPerforms.org, where you'll find featured videos, blogs, and information on upcoming arts events. Also, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'd like to thank Joe's Gallery for being such a gracious host. Check it out on the Illinois Avenue of Fashion. I promise you'll enjoy it. Until next Tuesday, get out there and show the world how Detroit performs, y'all. I'm DJ Oliver. Thanks for watching, guys.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, the A. Paul and Carol C. Scott Foundation, the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs, the National Endowment for the Arts, the DeRoy Testamentary Foundation, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.